per se. We have most of them that have been released by their prisons and jails. So in different South American countries, we have seen these released where they say, hey, you can't stay anymore. Make your way to America. They want you, and they come. And they're going to continue their criminal behavior. So that's number one. We've seen the release of mental illness asylum institutions in these countries where they've said go north. There's been 248,000 encounters per month.
Whoa.
In the United States. That's on both sides of the border in the United States, which is a 1,240% increase over 2021. That's per month, Carl. We have 434 inadmissible aliens being flown directly into U.S. airports. A lot of people do not realize this. Not all of them are just crossing the border. The United States government is flying now what's close to 434 inadmissible aliens that's been flown directly into U.S. Airports. In New York City, it's gotten so bad that NYPD is estimating that about 70% of the crime in Manhattan is associated with illegal migrants, about 60% in Queens. We have 150,000 special interest aliens, and I'm going to remind our listeners and viewers on what a special interest alien is. Those are people from known terrorist countries that have come into this country and been caught, but we don't know what the unknowns are, right? There's known gotaways and unknown gotaways because we can't track everybody. And then we have 362 criminal aliens on the terrorism watch list, the FBI terrorism watch list, that when at the end of Trump's presidency, they caught 2. And so we have a huge problem. We have so much fentanyl that is in our country right now. It would kill virtually every person in the United States. That's how much fentanyl has come into this country. And most of it is spiked. It's not necessarily in illegal drugs, but it's also in drugs that are supposed to be legal drugs. So you got to watch what you're purchasing and watch what you're obtaining.
Make sure you go to a doctor or a pharmacy for sure.
Right. But so there's money. There's a lot of money associated with this. The cartels know it, and they're using these South American gangs to help run their strong arming. And Carl, if we don't do something about it, we're going to go back to the time period where gangs were running the country in the 30s and 40s.
People don't realize
out of control.
People don't realize this, Doc. We only have 3 minutes left in this segment. I am going to keep you for another segment if you can stay with us, because there's still so much I want to get to. So we'll try to cover a lot of territory in a very short period of time. I want to play a video for you. The video that you were talking about earlier in the week, actually, we don't have that one up. We played it earlier in the week for those of you that watched of the Venezuelan gangs literally busting in the door. As Doc said, they were carrying pistols. They were carrying a long rifle. They were carrying a shotgun, some of them. But this is video clip number 2. Because there's been so much media attention, at least from the right, focus on this issue of the Aurora, Colorado apartment building. Here's what's happened since. Savannah Hernandez of TPUSA has been reporting. This is a different gentleman at Cho Show. He's also with TPUSA. But look at what they've done to that apartment complex in order to try to pretend as if everything is copacetic. Video clip number 2, por favor, Gabe.
Venezuelan gang members who have gone into an apartment complex.
All right, and by now many of you have seen that surveillance video showing the fellas walking around with pistols and a long gun with a scope. Well, I'm inside that apartment complex where that surveillance video was recorded. You see that white door, right? Well, check it out. It's right here. It's now been painted gray. Neighbors say there's been just so much scrutiny. A person living here does not want to be associated now with that viral video showing the guys walking up these steps with the pistols. So this door, which was once white, apartment 301, is now painted gray.
When I first saw that video, I thought it was a fake. I literally thought it was a fake when I saw the initial video. I'm like, is that really in the United States of America? And indeed it was. But anyway, we just have a minute left. I want to circle back to something really quickly here. 75% approximately of the arrests in Midtown Manhattan are illegals. So much for that argument, Doc, that these illegal immigrants don't commit as much crime as American citizens do. How they would be able to know that when they're not even tracking them, I don't even know. But that's been the argument from the left. 40 seconds, your response.
Well, data holds true universally. And if recidivism rates in the United States for violent offenders is over 70%, I can guarantee you that they're the same in other countries, if not higher. It all depends on focused deterrence. And right now, we don't have any focused deterrence. I would imagine in South America, where the jails are more brutal, they keep people in longer and they don't have rights. So that may not be as high because they actually stay into prison longer. But in America, it's about 70%, 75%. But we have lost focused deterrence, and this is important. If you don't have focused deterrence,
hold that thought, Doc. Hold that thought. We got to go to break. This is the Carl Jackson Show. Back with more of Dr. Currie Myers. All right, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. I mean, with that laundry list of news stories or headlines that I gave you in the last segment, two of them that I forgot to give you. Thank God Doc reminded me of one, Dr. Currie Myers. Again, make sure that you check out his Substack, drcurriemyers.substack.com. Also, check out his podcast, America's Criminologist. Obviously, the guy knows of what he speaks. His knowledge of law enforcement, his experience is just vast and wide. Love speaking to him about these things. But he mentioned, again, over 70% of arrests in Midtown Manhattan are illegal aliens. Also, Doc, real quickly, this 49ers wide receiver, rookie Ricky Purcell, I believe is his name. It turns out, and mainstream media didn't report this initially, that the teenager that tried to rob him for his Rolex watch ended up shooting him in the chest. Thank God he survived. He didn't hit any vital organs. The young man was working out just a couple of days later, so we're so glad that he's safe. But it turns out that it wasn't just a teenager that tried to rob him for his Rolex, but it was an illegal alien in San Francisco that tried to rob him for his Rolex. So this border crisis, this Biden-Harris border crisis, is going to come to a town near you. Real quick response there, Doc.
There's absolutely no question. It's something that we have to understand and deal with, and we've lost the what I call and refer to as focused deterrence in this country, where we're not enforcing the law like we should. If you want to see how bad it can get, I invite viewers to look at Brazil. Brazil is advanced enough that it has a lot of cameras and a lot of video. But you can see the strong arm robberies, you can see the armed robberies, you can see the kidnappings that occur, you can see the killings that occur literally on the street in different cities in Brazil. That is what's going to come to America, and I would make the argument that it has already arrived in America if we don't pay attention to this. And if we don't develop a strategy to deal with it immediately, because it's only going to get worse. As I said earlier, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 248,000 encounters a month at the border that are coming into this country. That's a month. And so we have a huge problem, my friend.
All right, so let's hone back in. We have about 8 minutes left. Let's hone back in on this situation in Colorado. And by the way, Gabe, go ahead and cancel those airplane tickets to Brazil after hearing that.
Hey, take out kidnapping insurance if you do.
All right, yeah. So this column from the American Conservatives, this gentleman starts off by saying, in 2023, I visited what Border Patrol calls the Del Rio sector of the U.S.-Mexico border. What I found was three things. One, a population that was under siege, American citizens under siege, by the illegal aliens crossing the border, overstretched police, and then basically an American region under de facto control of the Mexican cartels. And I mean, that was a Venezuelan gang in Aurora, Colorado. But this is what's happening right near the border, where Mexican cartels are starting to run operations within the United States of America, thanks to the Biden-Harris border policy, Doc.
Yeah, I mean, this has everything to do with bad public policy. We have bad criminal justice public policy because we have failed to do focused deterrence. If you want to know what's coming to America, if progressives become head of the United States and become president, look at California and Prop 47. Go to my Substack. I've written extensively on it. I've got a in-depth, about a 50-page perspective. I went and embedded with the Riverside County Sheriff's Office about a month and a half ago. I stayed there a week. The sheriff there, Chad Bianco, is a friend of mine. He invited me to come out. I embedded in 7 different bureaus in Riverside County, which, by the way, is bigger than about 5 East Coast states. That's how big Riverside County is. And I saw what Prop 47 has done to that country. They basically decriminalized drugs. They basically decriminalized property theft. So you can steal up to $950 of items every minute. You can go from one store to the other. It never equals a felony. They've taken away mandatory jail. They've taken away mandatory mental health treatment. They've taken away mandatory drug treatment as a result of going into jail. They've removed all that. So, and that's all done. Kamala Harris was the AG and supported Prop 47. And so if you have Kamala Harris is someone who's going to adopt those philosophies and bring them into the U.S. government. Now, that doesn't mean that the states still have rights, and they may, but there's going to be states like California and New York and certainly Minnesota and Illinois and others that are going to develop similar strategies. And that's the biggest concern we have. We have a lack of focused deterrence on the border as well. Immigration has never meant in the United States to be open. It's never. It's been a spigot, Carl. It's been a spigot to turn up and down based on needs of the country. And that includes a workforce that meets certain standards. That's the reason it took 7, 8, 10 years to become a naturalized citizen. Because you wanted to come here and do what? Assimilate.
Doc,
you wanted to come assimilate to these laws.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's such an important point, because part of the issue that we're seeing with all of these the illegals coming in is the issue of assimilation. They're not buying into the rule of law, so of course they're going to come here and take over. Let me circle back to this situation in Aurora, Colorado. We only have 4 minutes left here, and I want to ask you a few more questions. The mayor there, Mayor Kaufman, voiced some concerns about the situation, and apparently he was alongside, or citizens did, and they were alongside Mayor Kaufman. So the vibe was kind of like, listen, the local leaders and the citizens were all in this together. We're over this gang stuff. Also, the local city council woman, Danielle Jurinsky, took to Facebook with a blunt message. The article reads, and she says, quote, "And I repeat, a gang has taken over the entire complexes or entire apartment complexes in Aurora." She goes on to say, "Yes, we are concerned about a small Tren de Aragua presence in Aurora, and we are taking it seriously. We have responded, we have made arrests, and will continue to do so." But then when you dig a little deeper, this is all basically a show. It looks like local leadership, law enforcement, and the community are coming together against these gangs. But essentially, that isn't the case. Apparently, the chief out there, Heather Morris, is a DEI hire, the 5th police chief in 5 years, Doc, because police officers don't want to stick around in these sanctuary cities where they're not allowed to do their jobs.
Well, this is the unintended consequences, and I might dare say the intended consequences of progressivism. Because I think some of this is done purposefully because they want to change the political narrative and have more voters. And that's not made up. That we know that to be true because it's been said by political leaders on the left that they want. And in fact, the Biden administration actually has the U.S. Marshal Service actively recruiting people for voting as they come into this country, and they've gone into the prisons to ensure that prisoners have the right to vote. And that's the U.S. Marshals. It was done in a directive under Joe Biden as soon as he came into office, Carl. That's the first thing. And so, yes, we have a major problem with this that we have to be aware of. And the governor of Colorado, when he first heard about this, you know what he said? Oh, it's all made up. Didn't happen.
So did Heather Morris, the DEI hire, the interim police chief in Aurora. She said the same thing. Gang members have not taken